Hi everyone, it's MA. I have been loving watching everyone's VRs to Chanel Days with the end of year tarot tag. So I'm going to go ahead and do my contribution. I will list the prompts in the description, hopefully. The prompt number 1 is the deck you loved using most this year. Oh, and I will say a lot of my choices are not necessarily going to be new releases. So the deck I loved using most this year, it just kind of took my heart in the right way, has been the Lilifer Tarot, which I bought several years ago. And for some reason, like, I always liked it. And this year it really started to speak to me. It was there. It reminded me a lot. I think it took the place that the Shadowlands Tarot used to have for me, where these figures really resonated, and it was there during grief support, but also not in a overly kind of childish way. I think I mentioned before, I had Reclaim and it didn't really work out for me, but this was the year, and I've had this is a recurring theme. I have a lot of decks that I bought too soon, and took me, I really had to build more tarot experience to be able to relax a little more with some of these more intuitive or less narrative decks. I did get started on the Smith-Waite system, and this one really just, I took it out for daily draws for a week, and I just didn't want to put it away. I used it for about 3 months. And so I have a couple of honorable mentions for this. I brought in a few mass market oracles that were older releases this year and just loved using them. They seemed to go with so many decks, and I felt like I saw them on other people's channels, but they feel a little unsung. So one of them is the Sustain Yourself Oracle that's by the same creator as the Voyager Tarot. And I know there's a lot of really beautiful collage oracles out there, but if you're looking for a budget-friendly mass market collage oracle that has like 100 cards, and I've seen this priced between like $12 and $15, it's got a big chunky guidebook. It just made friends with every deck I put it with in a way that enhanced the message on the oracle. So it's pretty simple. There's one descriptor that's the name of what's on the card, and then kind of a keyword with it. And I really, really enjoyed using that with many different decks. And the other one, which I didn't see people using a lot, and then I did, and I went and picked it up, is the Urban Crow Oracle. Another one, you know, you'd think I'd pair this with the Crow Tarot. Not necessarily. It went with everything. It really did. And again, like just an illustration and one keyword. There is a guidebook, which I don't usually use, but where I'm using a tarot deck, you know, 2 cards from a tarot and 1 oracle, and using it to kind of address one question or issue. This one really was just played nicely with many decks, and these are both very budget-friendly mouse market decks. So yeah, I loved all 3 of those. Next tag number 2, most recent addition, and that would be the My Friend Fire Oracle, which I'm sure many of you had seen. I completely was unaware of the Kickstarter because I stopped looking at Kickstarter this past year for the most part. And then I saw, probably Liz over at West Star Healing. I probably saw her do a walkthrough, and I immediately went and ordered it. At the time, Mari was doing a special where they also sent the Tarot in a Tin version of Gentle Tarot, which I'm going to gift to someone as kind of a free add-on. But just so delighted by this. I haven't really had a chance to use it yet, but I love the colors, the messages, like, and I love Mari's work so much. So happy to have that as my latest addition. Prompt number 3, deck that isn't your usually style but you're vibing with it. Oh boy. So I finally did a thing, and I don't know if vibing is the right word yet, but I finally picked up the regular old, Lady Frida Harris Thoth Tarot. Also, strangely enough, I ordered the US Games version from Barnes & Noble, and this one arrived instead. I'm not mad about it. I'm going to say I'm still somewhat repulsed by it. So I don't know how to feel, but I've been dancing around with many Thoth adjacent decks. And now that I'm doing the study, I really felt like I needed to have a copy of this actual deck. Definitely a lot of mixed feelings. I love the Pippi cards. I like some of the cards a lot, and some of the cards repel me. And I know maybe you'll say, oh, they're supposed to, but I don't know. I still don't know how I feel. I will say I am also just started reading this book, and thank goodness La Melodie has a really good sense of humor, and is also kind of providing me the backdrop of the how and why and what's going on in this deck. So, as a study thing, yes. Ultimately, is this the Thoth deck I'm going to use? I'm not sure, but it was just time. Prompt number 4, favorite deck pairing. Okay. I'll give you an indie and a mass market version. So as part of my practice for a couple of months this year, I was doing what I call chaos pairings, where I have a list of my decks, both tarot and oracle, and I number them, and then I was using a random number selection software to pick a number, and then I would just use those 2 decks together, no matter what they were. And I recommend that because we all have our tendencies as to whether we pair decks because we think how they'll behave together or because they'll work aesthetically. And sometimes, like, non-aesthetic pairs are full of surprises. But as it turns out, these pairings actually do make aesthetic sense as well. So my first pair was the Lubanko Tarot. And I will also mention about this one. This is a deck that came into my collection too early. I liked the art, but I kind of didn't get it. And also then when it went out of print, I was kind of being precious about not using it. And now that the mass market has come out, I feel safer using it, and I also feel less bad about actually showing it. And the other deck that it has been playing very nicely with is the Outgrow Yourself Tarot and Oracle, which is actually a Thoth deck, but also has affirmations. So I kind of use it as an oracle. These have just been very good friends for the last 2 weeks, and I'm using them for a series of like single question readings where there's one question and I'm using 3 cards to respond to it. And they really just are working really nicely together. It's a little bit intense. I did a reading for a friend Saturday with these decks paired. And she actually, after I pointed out that they were 2 different decks after the reading, she kind of almost hadn't really noticed. And it's a little bit of an intense pair, but they really speak to each other really well. So that's my indie pack for my favorite pair. And then kind of a weird little mass market pair is these 2 tarots in a 10, which is the Barbara Walker and the Pocket Archetypes. And they have like a nice little party together too. I think part of it is just the size and the tins. I don't know. Again, this is a pair that's a little bit of a, they can get a little bit intense together as well. But I don't know, something about the way they speak to each other and the way the type of messages they have. So that's my mass market favorite deck pairing. A little bit unexpected. Okay, number 5, prompt number 5, Divination accessories. So one of them's on the table. I actually slow stitched this little wrap this year. I've been picking up like short fabric lengths at a thrift store. So this, I've been wrapping my Thoth Tarot in this. So I'll put that aside. And my other omnipresent accessories is the fountain pens and the journal. And I am not an aesthetic journaler when it comes to tarot. It's, you know, this is a Hobonichi, which one was it? Hobonichi HON, H-O-N. A page a day, spread a day, plus my daily card a day. And that's just me and my pens making a mess in a notebook. My favorite accessory. Prompt number 6, a great card back. So I think my favorite card back this year is from Boadicea's Tarot, which is this kind of bananas, busy, crazy thing with hands with eyes in them and octopi and bees and blossoms. And I just love this card back. I think it's a really great card back. It's not exactly reversible, but who cares? These cards are really big. Yeah, that's my favorite card back this year. Prompt number 7, deck with a theme I like. If you are not sick of me telling you about this deck yet, I don't really do theme decks like fandom decks or anything, but the Magic Pantry, the food theme deck, I think the more and more I use it, the more I am just impressed with how well it reads, how kind of beyond the initial impression of the simplicity of the decks, of the designs. I just find it to be delightful. Again, I've mentioned before, like we all have symbolism and associations with food that I think allows us all to bring something a little deeper in. The guidebook is great, and I think this is a wonderful deck. It is, I think Cedar called it like vegan friendly. There are mentions of, I think the 2 cards, like there's one that's meat and meat substitutes and dairy substitutes. But I don't, like good vegan food, you don't miss the meat in this one. So that was number 7, a theme I like. Most beautiful deck of the year. So I'm going to mention 2. They're both indie. I think they're still available. One is the Tabula Mundi Tarot, which this was definitely a contender for card backs. Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm journeying into Thoth study, it's because of this deck, which again, I held off on for so long and then started doing card a day, work with it over the summer. I think it's gorgeous. Is every card my favorite? No, but this sun card, man, it's, I think I like illustrations that are a little less fuzzy, a little less fractured, a little more graphic. And man, I am just in love with this deck. Yeah, compared, I mean, if you know the regular Thoth deck and how some of the courts are set up, like this to me is just such a cleaner image. I do a lot better with this. But it's one of my most, again, not a new release, most beautiful deck contender. And one other that I've had and hadn't used much, but used this year when I just needed like something really quiet and soft, is this Blue Earth Tarot, which was a Kickstarter, I want to say 3 years ago. was done using cyanotype. It's monochromatic. Even the mage, this is the Empress card. Even the mages are pippy. And doing the Death card, the Hermit. Even doing a multi-card reading with this, it's just very soft. It's very quiet. It's like a deck that whispers, and it's very watery from the blue and the rain. But yeah, when I needed this kind of deck, it really just was stunning. So that is the Blue Earth Tarot, my tie for most beautiful deck this year. Deck I wish existed, or a unicorn deck. You know, for years I was building from screenshots and typing on them like a tarot based on The Office. And I really decided that's more of a fun exercise for me, recognizing tarot in the world than something I want to commoditize and turn into a product. And I think about that a lot lately when it comes to certain types of decks. And so I don't think I have a deck that I wish existed. I don't know if that's weird. And even a unicorn deck, I mean, I'm kind of kicking myself I didn't pick up the B Nettles, is it Mountain Path deck? I think it's out of print currently. But I don't have a big wish list at this point. I'm pretty happy with my collection, and yeah, that makes life easy, right? Okay, prompt number 10, a card that sums up your year as a whole. I think we're all kind of, I haven't seen a lot of people pull the Star card or the Sun. I've seen a lot of the Tower and other things, and I actually pulled out this card from Tierra May's Cave of Sybil, and this is the Wound card, and this has been the year. It's been the year for me personally. It's been the year for those around me. I think it's been it's been the year that the world is having. And so, you know, I think wound also implies healing, and, you know, getting to partial healing and having the wound reopening, and is the wound infected? And it seems like it's our work personally and globally to kind of find our way through this. And that's where, yeah, this is the year for me. And again, it's not just me. I mean, I've definitely watched people close to me go through terrible things, and also strangers go through terrible things. And I don't know, I feel like the work is like, how do we keep going and not just sink into the abyss, right? Boy, that's cheerful. Okay, that was card number 10, or prompt number 10. Prompt number 11, tarot practice reflection. I've kept along the same path with a lot of things as far as, you know, how I pull cards daily and everything. Something I have been doing is doing more like small group things. I'm in a couple of practice circles that meet usually once a month. And I think that's something maybe everyone should look into. I know a lot of people that have Patreons do things like that. These happen to be not Patreon things. They're through other connections. And the other thing I've been doing is trying to get readings from people more often for many reasons. One is I read for myself constantly, and, you know, I need some check-ins there sometimes, and also to support other tarot people, and to learn more about people's reading styles. So I think those are the two biggest changes in the practice, and I'll keep going with those things. And also kind of figuring out like what's next for me in this space. Like, why now? What I think is a big question in my overall life. I'm approaching retirement, and now what? And also, what role is this tarot and divination practice going to play in that? I don't see that I'm going to turn into like a, you know, primarily giving readings, but I think there's some other things I want to look into there. So that's my practice reflection. And then the final prompt, number 12, is a card for next year and or a deck you want to use next year. I think at Chanel Days, they mentioned, you know, kind of the fear of pulling an actual tarot card because what if you get the Tower? So I will second that, and I'll say I'm going to pull an oracle card, I think, from this new deck, and just let it speak as far as like one thing to explore in the new year as the new year comes. So something to explore in the new year. And we have gotten the Receive card. Okay, I can work with that. This is a nice peaceful image. I think we've all, and this is collective truth, I think we've all been receiving a lot of information about those wounds and the troubles in the world. And, you know, I think for me, this is talking about where is the light and the beauty also being received. So if I put these two cards together, I think that's actually a lovely pair. So that's my card. And as far as the deck I want to work with, I have pulled this back out. I did start, when I first got it, was that 3 years ago now, doing it kind of as the Wheel of the Year. And I'm going to start that up again, doing the cards in order, because I found that the creative prompt aspect of this deck was really just incredibly well done, and hoping to return to that and use some energy in that direction. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and go watch all the VRs because they're awesome. And happy 2026. Bye.